Hello and welcome to the Blue Monday podcast. It's close season. The rules are out the window. This is it's close season. It's a whenever we want audio and YouTube show, and we are on season review part 2, which brings back to the podcast Mikey Penty Smith. How are you, Mikey? I haven't talked to you for the last half an hour, have I?
No technical problems at all.
None?
None at all. Yeah, I'm feeling great, very fresh.
Can we talk about your beard?
You can talk about my beard. I love talking about mine.
It looks, we were having a discussion where I worked yesterday. Look, pathetic. Mine won't join up there. You were just saying you get your beard trimmed in the barber shop.
I do, yeah, and it actually costs the same amount as the hair. So
my haircut is very expensive, even though it looks very terrible today. But how are you? How are you generally?
Yeah, I'm good. Happy about the Hurst appointment. Looking forward to the World Cup as well.
Oh, you're off in a couple of weeks after your
yeah.
retreat
But I get to enjoy the first couple of group games, so I'm looking forward to that. And that's usually the only part of a tournament when England fans have any sort of excitement is before it starts, and then maybe the first couple.
I'll be the guy who's watching, and then I'll get into it, and then by the time, I'm like, right, I need to go and see this with other people. Everything will be sold out, and there'll be nowhere to go. But not looking bad. But you mentioned the Hurst appointment. Are you the type of person who cares about kits? Because we got 2 new kits, and in particular, Magical Vegas have paid for each hospice thing to go on the children's kits. Are we going to be over this moral high ground betting sponsor stuff?
I think we might be. I do care about the kits, but I don't go out and buy them, not anymore. But yeah, I don't like being sponsored by a betting company, but I think it's more how bad the logo is that's bothering people. But I never liked having Marcus Evans on the shirt particularly, and that's why I stopped buying Ipswich shirts. But then again, great PR move from Magical Vegas with each. I think, great move, well timed. I think it draws a line under it, the main thing is that the shirts are nice.
Yeah, the away one looks good. Although, is Martin Waghorn in danger of doing a Vincent Kompany and just getting too ripped and then not being able to stay fit because he's carrying too much muscle fibre now?
He's a big lad, but I think these were filmed ages ago.
Oh, were they?
Yeah. I actually had a tip that the away shirt was going to be orange, and that's how I knew that. Yeah, they were filmed a while ago.
It's weird with Waghorn because at the Birmingham game and then the Millwall game, I know the Millwall fans were just because he's been there alone. He was getting "you fat bastard" chants, and he lifted up his shirt to reveal like a 24 pack or something. I think it's just because he's short and stocky, but yeah, I don't think you get fat footballers anymore. We're recording on Friday morning, Mikey, but there's been more comments. Marcus Evans, he didn't talk for 100 years. Now he won't shut up, will he? So let me read you some quotes, and you tell me what you think about these plans and the likelihood of what he says happening. So a key responsibility of Paul Hurst will be to oversee our evolving strategy to develop a playing style as well as a fitness and mental attitude ethos throughout all aspects of the club, and to work with Brian Klug and the club's coaches who will translate these goals as appropriate through all age groups. Right. Brian Klug has been there ages and established a certain way of playing with the younger players. Paul Hurst has been with Shrewsbury playing a bit more direct and functional. Surely this means that Hurst is going to be asked to do it the Klug way, yes?
I don't know. I mean, under the previous manager, there was such a big difference between how the youth teams were playing and the first team. But I do like the idea of there being a club style, but it doesn't necessarily work because I think in academy football, every club gets the young players to be good technically and to be good at passing it, and they play out from the back, play through the thirds. So if they do make it to the top of football, they're capable of playing it. But yeah, I don't know. It's a puzzling one, really. I don't know whether they will actually have one set playing style. It might just be setting up to win games or something like that, because I think Paul Hurst, I think he's going to try and play a lot of counter-attacking football, and that's not really something that you're going to get the under-14s to be doing. Paul Hurst is doing counter-attacking football, so yeah, let's just sit deep and go for it on the attack, because the results aren't important at youth level, are they? So, and counter-attacking is about, well, most tactics at the top of football is about trying to get a result. And we're always told that isn't the most important thing in youth football, it's player development. So yeah, I'm not sure. I don't know whether that's a Brian Klug idea or what, but yeah, I mean, I like hearing from Evans again, and there's a few positives that have come out of it as well. So, which is, yeah, the other point. What was the other point?
Yeah, so I've got more. Lee O'Neill will head up the department and will soon be supported by a first-team sports scientist and fitness coach, ensuring we transfer best practice into fitness and medical across all squads, with a goal to significantly increase availability for minutes on the pitch for all players. Now, we're about to do games number sort of 13 or 14 through to 24 or 25, and this is going to become a feature. Obviously, there was widespread mockery of Andy Liddell's quotes in the ESPN piece of, the players who are over 25 don't really need a fitness coach, so just let them look after themselves. What's your view on the sort of sports science thing, and were we just behind the times?
Yeah, I think it's as simple as that. I think we're just joining the 21st century. I feel like Andy Liddell was maybe guilty of playing things down a little bit, the importance of the little details like the previous manager used to, because I'm sure there was some efforts made in terms of sports science and the stats and so on. But yeah, we just weren't in the 21st century. I can't believe that we didn't have a sports scientist. I thought there's clubs much lower down the leagues with much less money than us who have one.
Sam Allardyce had one in 1998.
I mean, exactly, and he's a dinosaur as well. But yeah, and that's why I don't subscribe to the idea of Paul Hurst just being a young Mick McCarthy, because yeah, there are similarities there, but he likes to set his sides up and good, honest pros, etc., etc. But he is also looking to the future. He's finding ways to improve, and when you don't have a big budget, those sort of things can make all the difference. If we had everybody fit last year, we might have been closer to, well, we would have been closer to the playoffs. We might have been really close, because we weren't. It wasn't like we were struggling down the bottom of the league all season. For much of it, we were on the fringes of the playoffs, and if we hadn't have lost the players that we lost, we could have been in there.
In the words of Big Sam, marginal gains. Yes,
marginal gains, exactly. Yeah,
marginal gains. Right. Let's get back into last season. So brilliant debut by Joe Fairs on the podcast. We did the first 12 games. So we went up to home defeat to Bristol City on the 30th of September. So we're starting today after the international break number 2. We go to October the 14th. Ipswich are 8th in the league. They've played 10 and they've got 18 points. So extremely good 1.8 points per game. By the way, you've been very good with the previous manager. We're going back in time, so I'm actually going to say his name today, so we can lift the ban. So McCarthy has tried 3 different systems and still seems very far away from settling on a squad and an 11. So we go. It's October the 14th. We're going to Sheffield United away. Back to 3-5-2 and a classic Mick matchup with Chris Wilder, who'd scored 100 points with a 3-5-2 the previous season. Sheffield United are 3rd in the league. And how many times do I say this? A very tight 1-0 defeat away from home. Webster comes back from injury. This first 11 looks good, Mikey. Bart in goal, Webster, Chambers, Knudsen, Kenlock, Iorfa, Nydam, Skews, Ward, Waghorn, McGoldrick. Garner is missing, but I love the balance of that midfield three. Basham gets the goal. The Blades are just kind of rewarded for actually being a little bit brave and pushing some people off position, as Mick Mills would say. Clark hits the bar, but Waghorn also hits the bar, and McGoldrick shoots wide. Lot of information there, but look at that midfield three: Nydam, Skews, Ward, and it could have been a way to go. And you get this. What the hell's the plan with these forwards? It's Waghorn and McGoldrick today because Garner's not there. Anyway, lots to talk about. What are your thoughts on this narrow defeat?
Well, the notes that I've written down, we had Iorfa and Kenlock at wing back, and they are actually both at fault in their own way for the goals. And I thought that's quite typical of the way that system was going, in that we were pretty solid, but it seemed that the wing backs didn't always know exactly where they needed to be. And Iorfa and Kenlock both just seemed to be one good game followed by one bad game. I gather that Kenlock was much improved at the end of the season. I didn't go to the games at the end of the season, but whenever I've seen him, he may have had a good game the last time, but he's followed it up with a really iffy game. And I think that was probably down to knowing that under McCarthy, if he did have a slightly bad game, he was going to be out of the team. But I like you said, it has got good balance. I do like the 3-5-2 with the personnel that we've got, because we obviously had wing backs, and then we also have fullbacks, Spence and Knudsen, who are actually better in a three.
Yeah, remember Berra would struggle when he had to, go out to the wing, wouldn't he?
Yeah, do anything other than head the ball and block the ball. But yeah, I'm not so sure on Ward, Skews and Nydam in there, and that isn't just through hindsight. I just feel like that's quite a lightweight midfield. That Nydam's still so young, so fresh-faced. I feel like in a three he could probably do with, I don't know, either a more experienced or another physical midfielder alongside him, because Ward, although he does do some good things when he's in that midfield three, he's just it's very random.
Like, you're actually
runs
right.
Around and he dribbles, and
you're actually right, Mikey. It was Fleck, Lundstrom, and I can't think who the other one was. They had a very good midfield three. And the thing as well, that happened in the QPR game as well, where it was Sco and Freeman and Luongo, where we just got completely overrun. So yeah, you may have a fair point. Let's go to the next game, which is the heartbreak. It's just flashed up on my iPad. October the 21st, and the first local derby of the season. There's been a lot on Twitter today about lot on Twitter today about the financial stuff from recent seasons, and showing Norwich's wage bill like the third highest in the league. So first local derby. There've been the two draws the previous season. Norwich at Portman Road with Daniel Farke, first time we've seen him. Actually 9th and 10th going into the game. Back to a back four, so again, all over the place with the systems. Spence comes back at right back. Adeyemi starts in a midfield three with Nydam and Skews. So what you were saying about it being lightweight, I think Adeyemi would solve that. And the fatal mistake here, Garner, Waghorn and McGoldrick all start in a kind of 4-3-3 that leaves you very vulnerable down the sides of the pitch. Norwich bring in ex-keeper Brian Gunn's son Angus in goal, some new Germans, Derby specialists Wes Houlihan and Cameron Jerome, and we get our first glimpse of their new star player, Mr. James Maddison. So what happened, Mikey?
Well, I remember being, I did have a couple of drinks before the game, first thing in the morning. But I remember, I sound like David Brent now, don't I? Yeah, he drinks.
How many drinks have I had this week then? Because professional is, and that is
what I am. I hope I got that right. He put me under pressure there. But I remember I was really pleased that Adeyemi came into that midfield and Nydam also kept his place because I thought he'd be fired up for it. I like that as a midfield three. I think there's good balance there. Not that we saw it. I don't think we saw it again. But
Ever.
yeah, and I did still like the idea of McGoldrick, Waghorn, and Garner playing because I suppose I was falling into the same trap as McCarthy. I just saw them as, well, we need Garner up there for his physical presence, and then Waghorn and McGoldrick are two of our best outfield players, if not the best attacking outfield players we've got.
Joe Fairs mentioned this, Mikey. Sometimes sticking your best players all on the pitch doesn't work. Sorry, go ahead.
I know, and that was why I wasn't a particularly good manager at university. And so yeah, Selena didn't play. I remember thinking that was quite negative. But yeah, Ipswich came out and we did start fairly well and we were on top. And Norwich looked fairly poor, apart from on the left side, Jordan Spence was getting absolutely rinsed. And
it was actually Waghorn over there, and Joe mentioned this as well. And
yeah, but it wasn't just that. Spence was he was 1-on-1 with the wing back.
Steeperman and Wiltshire, yeah.
Yeah, but even when it was just Wiltshire, he was getting done, and he just looked mentally shot. He just looked like he just didn't fancy it. But yeah, we almost scored with Knudsen, and yeah, I was relatively pleased by the way that we played in the first half. But then, as is so often the case, we came out in the second half and conceded early. It was a good goal from Madison.
Great ball by, great switch by Houlihan.
Oh yeah, it was brilliant. Yeah. Really enjoyed it.
Horrible, wasn't it?
But yeah, so then Norwich scored and they suddenly looked really assured, and they started to look like a really good team. And I was thinking, oh, here we go again. Norwich are much better than us. But we still had the options on the bench to change it. And I say options, I just mean option. Adeyemi came off for Flynn Downs. That was the first change, I think, which made us more defensive and meant that we then had two rookie midfielders in the midfield up against the more wily Norwich midfielders plus Madison. And it took 76 minutes for Selena to come on. And to be fair, we've waited more than that for Selena to come on since then. But yeah, and then he started to make a difference, but yeah, by then it was too late. Another thing worth mentioning, the attendance that day, it was less than 25,000 for a derby. Like, do we not have 30,000 fans in the UK anymore? What do you think?
I think I agree with virtually everything you just said, other than, and you'll be pleased to be wrong about this, Norwich looked like they were going to be way better than us this season, but that turned out not to be the case. Bit of a false dawn for them. I don't know about the attendance. I mean, Graham Blackburn on Naked Football he's very annoyed that these games are always on a Sunday and always at midday. And I mean, I like that they're on Sky, but it says it all about the casual Ipswich fan. They're the ones you want to get back. The ones who are going to buy, I don't know, 5-10 tickets per season, just come as and when they want. They're the ones, you're always going to have your hardcore of, I don't know, 13,000 it proved last season. But yeah, you're right. And if they're...
But to be fair, I'm a casual Ipswich fan, although it doesn't feel like it because Ipswich Town, it feels such a big part of my life. But because of work and where I live, I don't get to many Ipswich home games. But when I move heaven and earth to make sure that I can get to the Norwich game, and I don't understand why there's that many empty seats. Surely other Ipswich fans want to be there the time that we do finally beat Norwich, because it's been the best part of a decade now. Maybe it's fear, maybe we just don't have that many fans anymore. I don't know.
But... I can't answer that one, but it's certainly a very interesting question. We'll see. Be interested to see what that attendance is this season.
I don't think it will be much different. Even when we liked Mick McCarthy. The season when we reached the playoffs, the first game it wasn't a sellout, and then it was only just a sellout in the playoffs.
The first game was very, very early, wasn't it?
It was, yeah, and that is, yeah. When's a good time for a derby, do you think?
Never. Just don't
Okay.
cancel them all. Boxing Day. There you go.
Yeah,
That was sellout,
I
wasn't it?
fancy doing them just before Christmas at home. I feel like that would be the best time to play Norwich next
Sure.
season.
But disappointing, and I remember Dave saying just when that goal went in, and I think you concur, they won as soon as that ball hit the net, didn't they? It was that they became very assured, and we became very, very scared. And I think as well, a lot of people said this is a decent chance to beat them, and it didn't happen. And you've foreshadowed a couple of very interesting things that are going to happen. So we go into the Burton game now. So all that run of victories has now been replaced by a run of 7 defeats in 9, if you include that Crystal Palace game in the League Cup. We're down to 11th position. Injury crisis in defence is pretty much solved, but McCarthy really struggling to reconcile the fact that he's got these good forward players and how to fit them in, and he kind of struggling to leave any of them out other than the crazy 4-4-2 efforts with, Sears and McGoldrick on the wings. Sears and Waghorn on the wings virtually. So he goes back to 4-2-3-1 at Burton. All the forwards play. So Garner's up front with Sears, Waghorn, McGoldrick behind. Tom Adeyemi has disappeared again, as he tends to do. It's 0-0 at half time. Turner scores, I think, from a set play to give Burton the lead. Waghorn equalises, and we go into the last 10 minutes with the Ipswich fans chanting for Selina to come on. On he comes. I think you mentioned it, 80 minutes, I think. Scores the winner, and here's the wonderful quotes from Mick McCarthy. I don't give a shit about that, by the way. He didn't go on because of that. Let me just clear that up. In fact, there's more chance of him not going on when they start telling me what to do. And yes, I am a belligerent fuck. Let's clear that up.
Yeah, and he's the manager that supposedly doesn't pay any attention to what the fans say. But then, if you're not making a sub
because of what the fans say.
Yeah.
Oh, so Joe mentioned a turning point, the Bolton game, where the argument was if the team are winning, the fans come back, you're up the top of the league, and the attendance has dropped down. This a few defeats, and this seemed to be a bit of a shift in the bickering between the fans and Mick. I mean, what asinine, ridiculous comments from what? I know we went through this at the time. Why is he even saying that?
I don't know. I guess you get fired up when people are having a go at you, and then you have the adrenaline of winning in the last minute. And Mick's probably the sort of manager that always will be saying to the players, "Let's stick it to them. Let's stick it to them." And yeah, I mean that came across in the post match, but it's just a bit embarrassing, especially as and Mick McCarthy is in some ways, well, he's more high profile than the Ipswich team in the Championship. I'm not saying he's more high profile than the club.
Well, that was proven when he left. Yeah, I agree with you.
So these quotes get picked up, and then they get pointed at you as an Ipswich fan, and it is just like I'd laugh, but then.
But the thing is, Mikey, judging from what we saw with the way that he's able to play the media, and you say these quotes get picked up, they don't get picked up. He puts them there. He knows when to switch into gruff Yorkshire Mick McCarthy character to get his column inches. And the stupid thing is that in most other situations, it's 1-1 in a game, manager puts on a sub scores the winner. The manager's a genius, right?
Yeah.
But this turns into this silly negative. So,
but in some ways, that one felt like, despite what he said, it did feel like a bit of a victory for those away fans at Burton. because they were calling for it to happen, and it seemed to reluctantly happen in the end. And when Selena went on, I bet if Mick could have chosen any player to score, I think Selena would have been very, very low down that list of who he wanted to score. And yet Selena scored and then went absolutely mental. And yeah, it was a good moment, because that must have been terrible, being in the away end at Burton and watching us struggle. We're like that. We only had 2 shots on target, and they were the 2 goals.
Is that the case, really? Oh
yeah,
my God.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, a win is a win, but obviously slightly overshadowed by the just the balmy nature of a manager behaving in that way. And can I just say, I've said all the time that both sides were a bit guilty, but what is more unreasonable here? Fans chanting for a substitution to be made, or the head of a multi-million pound business speaking like that? What's more unreasonable? I'll park that and I'll leave that there. Off we go to Cardiff, Mikey. October the 31st. So we're Saturday, Tuesday, Saturday, and there's an international break coming up after the Saturday game. So Mick is going to completely prioritise the game after the Cardiff game. He's going to put all his eggs in the Preston basket. So we show up at Cardiff. They're 3rd in the league. And obviously Mick is thinking 6 points for the week is great, which it is. 2 points per game is you get promoted with that. And he decides he's going to make 6 changes. So the system changes again, but he keeps the back 4. Smith in for Webster. Iorfa in for Spence. Skews is going to sit in front of the back 4 on his own. Selena starts, and this is the point as well that he's now going to actually start Selena for about the next 6 games. So, you do the math. Brew, who we're told was leaving, he comes in for Nydam. Downs in for McGoldrick. Ward in for Waghorn, and Garner up front on his own. Predictably, we lose 3-1 fairly tepidly. Chambers and Smith really struggled against the direct. I know a lot of defenders at Cardiff ultimately got promoted, struggle against those guys, but you'd think 2 tall, experienced centre backs would be fine. Selena scores again. Skews had a cigar on. He was excellent, just sitting in front of the back 4. But most interestingly, Callum Connolly, who has been signed as a fullback, comes in and plays in centre midfield, comes on as a sub for Flynn Downs. So talk to me about the rotation, the process, and then talk to me about putting a loanee fullback ahead of Downs and Nydam in centre midfield.
Well, it was typical Mick McCarthy, wasn't it? Even in the way we set up, it was just to match Neil Warnock's team, which is a really optimistic way of setting up. Kevin Brew coming in, so strange. And then, Callum Connolly, a loanee, being put in centre midfield. That's a real McCarthy move. But then it turned out that Connolly does also play centre midfield.
That's
but
no
it just
comment on
it wasn't
Connolly,
expected.
is it?
No. But yeah, it was the centre back that we sold to Portsmouth. Was he when we got Webster? Clark.
Yeah. Matt Clark.
Clark came on at Millwall a few years ago and played left wing when we were winning. Really strange.
That must have been a defensive set play move, yeah?
Yeah. So in some ways, I don't like it. I don't like so many players being. Is it rested, rotated? Because they played at Burton on the Saturday. Surely they'd want to play again on the Tuesday, and that's how you get rhythm. And Tommy Smith came in, hadn't played much football all season, and obviously struggled because Cardiff are a decent side. And maybe there was just too many changes. Like you're changing the formation, and then you're bringing in a couple of players who hadn't played all season, and then you're putting a loanee in centre midfield. How is that going to work against a decent side? It's like you just pick the white flag up.
But this is a point
But
that
then,
Joe was making
yeah,
the other day, Mikey. If you're going to put the white flag up, put the white flag up. Leave Waghorn at home. Leave. Do you know what I mean?
yeah,
Don't even take them. I mean, obviously, ultimately, we're going to see he beats Preston. So kind of, I remember at the end of this saying, well, look, he's vindicated. He's got 6 points from from the week. If we'd have lost by 1 goal narrowly at Cardiff and then drawn against Preston, that's a worse points return. But I don't know. Maybe it comes into this sports science argument that maybe there'll be a reason next season and it'll be done a little less, like you say, a little less haphazardly. I just remember, and I know this is Barcelona, but I'm making the point. I remember listening. This must have been like 2010, where they had a plan for Iniesta for the whole season for him to peak in the last. Do you know what I mean? It was planned out, his entire training method and everything, and when he was going to play and all his minutes and his running was all planned out. And I think you've hit the nail on the head that the resting was just very haphazard and not particularly well thought out. Is that what you're saying?
yeah. It just seems to be random, just completely random. Just like our tactics going forward, it just seems to be completely off the cuff. Just I mean, when I say going forward, I mean attacking, not moving to the future. Yeah, I mean, maybe McGoldrick you could manage in that way, but then he's probably going to pick up a few injuries here and there.
But then Mikey, as soon as he plays well, you're going to be like, I can't leave him out.
Yeah,
Do you know
exactly.
what I mean?
Yeah,
He'll have a brilliant game, and
it is a difficult one. And I suppose in some ways McCarthy played Garner and Waghorn quite well over the course of the season because there was never any point where they looked completely jaded or completely off the boil. There was obviously a spell where Garner didn't score for a while, and then there was a spell where Waghorn didn't score for a while, but they were always contributing. So yeah, I suppose he played those two quite well, but just changing up that midfield constantly. I think in all of the matches that we're going to do, there's not. I think there might be 2 games where we have the same midfield, and some of that was injuries, but yeah, just far too much chopping and changing.
Well, let's add the context to this then, because obviously it was planned out to be a 3-game block. However, it was executed. November the 4th, Preston at home. Spence and Webster come back. So Connolly, having come on as a sub, now starts in a centre midfield too with Skew. So he, in 20 minutes, usurps Downs and Nyden basically for the rest of the and we know that Connolly was very good in centre midfield, but he took, I don't want to say he took the chance away from a young Ipswich player, but he did. He took it for himself, and it's fine. It's sport, isn't it? It's a competitive industry. McGoldrick, Waghorn, and Selina start behind Garner, so similar to the Sunderland 5-2 thing. And to McCarthy's credit, the rotation works. Preston, with many injuries, go down 3-0. But the first half was absolutely unwatchable. It was one of those McCarthy-type games where it was just utterly dire. Waghorn puts a strange free kick in where the keeper's badly positioned. McGoldrick and Selina kill it off. Are we forgiving the Cardiff rotation? And just this pivotal moment where Conley and Skews now basically become the midfield 2 for the rest of the season. People say short-termism from McCarthy. Fair criticism. Sorry, 2 very long-winded questions. Do we forgive the rotation at Cardiff, and was it blatant short-termism to just go with Connolly now for the rest of the season?
Okay, so the rotation, we had 36% possession against Preston, so we clearly were putting a shift in. Maybe that was the plan all along, to let Preston have the ball with their. To be fair,
I remember when we were 3-0 up, Preston had the ball for like last 20 minutes and didn't. Yeah. That might be a bit. I remember Ben Pearson looking like Juan Roman Riquelme for the last 20 minutes because we were
Okay.
just like, okay, you have the ball, we're 3-0
Yeah,
up.
see that's the problem with just looking
Just
back
stats,
and
yeah, right,
looking at
yeah.
the stats. But yeah, I suppose it can be forgiven, although to win at Burton was very lucky. So yeah, 6 points out of 3 games, losing away at Cardiff. Yeah, I mean that's not bad. Um, so yeah, I suppose because we're looking back at it and we know what's been said by McCarthy, so it's kind of hard to um, just go with whatever he did. But I think in this case, yeah, the results, yeah, they justify the decision. Putting Connolly in midfield, I remember saying at the time
That finished Downs, by the way, Mikey. That was him done for the season.
it did, yeah, but he's very young, and I don't feel like he was ever going to play loads.
Okay.
Um, I Downs was a player that excited me at the start of the season. He's clearly a clever player, likes to tackle, but also good on the ball, shows nice touches. But I saw him once again, and he looked a little bit slow, which is a bit of a worry when he's so young. Like that should be one of the advantages that he has over a more experienced midfielder, is that he should be able to cover the ground a lot quicker. I feel like if you combine the good parts of Downs' game to the good parts of Nydam's game, there'd be a really good midfielder in there. But I feel that they're both behind Connolly, and I think Mick McCarthy's well within his rights to play the player that he thinks is better in that position, and I think it turned out Connolly arguably was more consistent than what Nydam or Downs could be. Not necessarily better. Might turn out that one or maybe even both of them turn out to be better midfielders than Connolly. But for this season alone, I think Connolly was the more consistent choice, and that is what McCarthy. That's what he is. He's a over the course of the season manager. So he was just doing what he always does. Like you might not like it, but personally, I think he was probably doing the right thing.
No, well put, well put.
But having said that, I would have liked to have seen Downs get more of a chance rather than playing Kevin Brew, for example, when he played him.
Okay. So despite our kind of slightly negative outlook, all these changes of selection, lots of defeats, Ipswich going to international break number 3, 2 points off the playoffs, still due to those, that big streak of wins at the beginning of the season. 8th position, and they've still got this fabled game in hand, which they're definitely going to lose away at Derby. So 18th of November, bit of a rest, and you're going now into, because of the game in hand, you're going into a Saturday, Wednesday, Saturday, Tuesday, Saturday run of games. So if ever there was a time for rotation, clever rotation, this would be it. And it's Leonid Slutsky's Hull, who are 20th in the table, and wild Claxon, unbelievable scenes, an unchanged team from the Preston game. So it looks like 16 games in, maybe by some strange default, he's worked out his system. He's going to go with a 4-2-3-1. He's going to go with Connolly and Skews, and like you say, just off the cuff, the front four every week and see what happens. McGoldrick gives Ipswich the lead. Bowen equalises. Dicko puts Hull 2-1 up 5 minutes into the second half. McGoldrick misses a penalty in the 75th minute, and Spence gets the equaliser. Given some of the football in the spring, we've got 2 goals, fight back from a deficit, a Knudsen assist, an unchanged team, and a point on the board. We should probably be quite positive about this this performance, but a missed penalty and not securing the win, Mikey. What were your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like just going on the result, I feel like if the McGoldrick penalty went in, the Spence chance probably doesn't happen, because
You're not pushing forward.
Mick would have been happy with the point, and yeah, we'd have just sat back, maybe even conceded another goal.
And we haven't started doing that yet. That's the next game.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I suppose in some ways going to Hull, although they were struggling 2-2 at Hull after winning 2 in 3, was it? it's not a bad result. And yeah, I mean, it was good to see us play the same formation. But I think already by this point, if not before, we were already thinking, yeah, it's going to be mid-table for us this season. The fact that we were fairly happy to pick up an away point at the team that 20th.
20th, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that suggests, yeah, we're a mid-table side.
There's always that thing with these relegated teams, though, where you're like, oh, at any point they could start to, their Premier League players could start to play well. So I guess there's always that. So we're going to Wednesday night, Sky TV again, and it's Sheffield Wednesday at home. Same personnel again. So whatever says about the reason,
I was wrong then.
Whatever Mick says about the reasoning, he did go with Selena after the Burton game. He started the next load of games. So Leuven smashes McGoldrick after a couple of minutes, which is a more important moment than it. A more important moment than it appeared at the time, because McGoldrick plays on. He lasts until half time, but the Sky cameras reveal it to be a very bad tackle. Mikey, you were Paolo Di Canio, and for people listening on audio, you thought that was a red card?
Yeah, absolutely. It was shocking. And yeah, fair play to McGoldrick for playing on, because I know that he gets a lot of stick for the amount of injuries that he has, and it seems to take him a long time to come back. And he sometimes he looks like he doesn't care very much, but that's the second time the last few seasons where he's had a serious injury and he's tried to play on. I know that's maybe not what you should do if you're not offering as much as you should, but fair play to him. That must have been painful. And yeah, I don't know if he got sent off, it might have been a cagier game. I thought it turned out to be fairly entertaining, especially in the second half.
He pulls down the band on his shorts at the start of and the injury is literally like above his waist. So the only defence you can give the ref. I mean, I was getting like texts from people saying, "Oh, Leuven should have been sent off." And you know when the only defence I can give the ref is if he was just blindsided by it and didn't quite see where it connected.
I can't remember. I think it might have just been that it came so early.
Perhaps.
I think he possibly bottled it.
So McGoldrick disappears and is going to go and have an operation. Garner gives Town the lead on 40A. A very silly handball by Jordan Spence. Hooper puts the penalty in for 1-1. And on 67 minutes, Emyr Hughes comes on. So this is going to be my cry of the day, that McGoldrick and Hughes miss each other by 20 minutes, and all the what ifs and wheres and whys and wherefores there. So Hughes comes on, and literally 3 minutes later, brilliant assist for Waghorn. But
at this point, all is well with the world, isn't it?
It is. You find.
I know McGoldrick's got injured, but at this point, we don't know how serious it is.
No.
Emyr Hughes is back on the pitch, playing a part in a goal, and we're beating Sheffield Wednesday on Sky. Like, we never win on Sky.
No.
At this point, I'm believing again.
But a horrible theme that is going to punctuate the rest of our season occurs, and in the 93rd minute, Andre the Giant, as we call him on the podcast, Antti Nui, who hasn't scored for over 40 games, heads in a nice cross by Adam Reach. Go on then, Mikey.
So yeah, sorry for interrupting you there. I just felt like it was a nice moment in an otherwise
you've got to savour them.
Season. Yeah, I watched the game. I wasn't there. I watched the game with a Sheffield Wednesday fan, and I remember he was surprised by how good we were, because I'd been saying how poor it's been and there's no plan going forwards, and we're leaking more goals than we used to. But yeah, we were well on top in that second half, and we looked quite good. And yeah, and Hughes played the part in the goal. We're still looking really dangerous from set pieces, which, I mean, it's not the prettiest way to score a goal. But I remember under Burley, we'd get a corner, and quite often we never score from corners.
Take it short, knock it back to halfway, yeah.
And it is quite nice chanting "Come on, you Blues," thinking we might actually do something here. But yeah, when Nuhu or Andre the Giant was being readied, my mate said to me, "Oh God, him. He was." I was like, "He's enormous, isn't he? Like, is he like he must be pretty dangerous?" He was like, "Oh, he's massive, but he never wins anything in the air. And if he does, the ball just goes sideways." And at that point, I knew that he was going to score. That very moment. And then yeah, he did. And yeah, that was a real sickener because it wasn't like we were nicking a win.
Oh, and the
We
penalty was
deserved it.
Spence
Oh,
just
and
had a brain
Spence.
fart, didn't he?
Yeah, he does that.
They
He does
scored
that too much.
they scored a breakaway goal at the end, and I know a lot of people were hammering Garner and Sears for giving the ball away in the corner, and then Connolly for not making a tactical foul. But a breakaway goal can happen, but
Yeah,
that's
I
where
feel like I can't ever criticize those decisions because although when I'm playing football, I love to time waste, so I wouldn't be going forward. I'd just be finding a way to time waste. But when I'm watching Ipswich, I'm always desperate for them to go on and try and nick that goal because I feel like we can concede anyway, even if they do make the right decisions. And it was the same at Norwich later on in the season when
Forest
we broke forward. And yeah, in hindsight,
and Middlesbrough.
yeah, we should have done anything else. But I was still shouting, "Go on, go on, we can score here." Maybe I just get completely carried away.
It can always happen at the end. It can always happen. But you made a really good point when you said we didn't know the extent of McGoldrick's injury, so we weren't worried. But Hughes and McGoldrick just missing each other and not being fit at the same time, I think, is a real missed opportunity.
Yeah, although it did mean that Hughes could play a bit further forward. He sort of
That
moved into the
he went straight into the 10 position, yeah.
yeah. I mean, it wasn't a 10 in the way that McGoldrick plays it.
No.
He was a bit deeper, but yeah, it would have been nice to see them play together because they did look quite good together at the end of last season, didn't they? The season before last.
So, we're going to Villa away, where McGoldrick and Hughes had their finest hour. Out go Selina and McGoldrick. In come Sears and Ward, and Town are overpowered by this expensive. Villa are in a good moment here. Adoma scores twice. You saw it before me, obviously, but the one thing I took away from that game was, my God, Waghorn's corners are good. You'd seen it before I did, but I started to think, wow, we could, because we had one disallowed, and he really was putting in good ones. Then I was like, we could score from any corner with this guy taking it. He'd usurped Grant Ward as a corner taker. Bit of a lame surrender. When you go to an away game as an Ipswich fan, we're going to lose and Jordan Rhodes is going to score. One little sidebar: Ted Bishop plays the last 15 minutes. But Mikey, 2 points from 9 that week when we had the lead against Hull, the lead against Sheffield Wednesday, should have been at least 4, shouldn't it?
Yeah, I think 4 would have been fair, and yeah, we'd have been happy with that. The Aston Villa game was one where the writing's on the wall. I think 2-0 was the most likely outcome, a 2-0 defeat, because we set up for the draw, we go behind, and then we try to get one back and then eventually get caught out. But one thing, I think that Sheffield Wednesday goal from the corner, I think that was actually, because I watched it back, I think it was Selina that took it.
Really?
I don't know why. I don't know whether, to begin with, Waghorn wasn't taking the outswinging corners. But again, at home to Norwich, his corners were abysmal, really, really bad. And I remember a mate saying to me, "What did you think of Waghorn's corners?" And they were really bad in the set pieces. So I'm getting ahead of myself here, but they were really bad away at Norwich as well.
Yeah, Dave said exactly the same thing.
But they're actually, although they look bad, they're not actually terrible, because what he's doing, he's trying to whip it in so we can score a goal. So now and again, it will hit the first man if it's slightly too low. But Waghorn is perfectly capable of just chipping a ball into the box 10 times out of 10, and we'd never score from it because it'd be impossible to get a run and get power on the header. So what Waghorn's doing, he's smashing these corners in, and when it does get over the first man, we've got a chance of scoring. So yeah, it was the theme of our corners this season. They hit the first man, or we score or head it over or hit the bar or whatever. So yeah, we were definitely much improved with set pieces last season. That certainly can't be denied.
I'm not going to comment on that because Dave and I had an interesting argument about the very same thing, and I think you've just affirmed my view, and it would be very unfair for me to bury him while he's while he's not here. But I totally agree that yeah, anyone can just float a ball into the box and you're never going to score from it. And this was what I was arguing the whole time, even in the Norwich away game. You're like, look, he's aiming for sort of 7 feet off the ground into the near post area, pointing towards the goal at great speed. It's like if you do beat that first guy, you ain't defending that. But interesting point you made is that Selena didn't play the Villa game, so maybe Waghorn even ended up on corners just by default.
Yeah,
And
I think he was always on the in swingers, but that might have been what
okay.
moved him onto out swingers as well.
Yeah. So off we go to Derby to lose our game in hand and even up everything. So it's 28th of November. We always win 1-0 away at Derby, so this run couldn't possibly continue. But strangely, we win 1-0, and we go within 3 points of the playoffs in 9th place. Ghana is not around, so this is an interesting lineup, which I very much like. So 4-2-3-1. Waghorn plays up front on his own, and I'm there at the start of the game thinking, oh, this isn't going to work out so well. You know, Waghorn's, Ghana's so good in the air, and such just a bastard to play against. Waghorn's not going to be like that. But behind him, we have Selena on the left, Ward on the right, and Hughes in behind. So the style was actually, forget the type of performance that transpired, but the potential to play football of that four is very different than the fullbacks booting the ball up to Ghana and hoping that one of them falls down to McGoldrick at some point. So I hate goals where the ball doesn't hit the net. I'm not going to cheer a goal so Connolly heads it, and I think someone, I don't know, the keeper scoops it out. I don't remember totally. All I remember is the ref pointing to the buzzer on his watch. It was a bit of a shithouse, I must admit, because Derby did kind of dominate, but I'm going to be very wise after the event. You could see the flaws in why Derby were not going to get promoted in that game. You're like, where's the speed? Where's the quick passing? Where's the variation here? If you, I know they outplayed us in the return game, but Mikey, you mentioned it. Hughes I know he's not a deep line forward number 10, but in terms of an advanced playmaker, Hughes in, and we get the win.
Yeah, perfect. I mean, it was a good lineup. I think you look at it had good balance, and that was maybe partly because Ghana wasn't playing.
I love Ghana, but I totally agree.
Fault. Yeah. You could have even taken Waghorn out and had Ghana playing, or that the style would then be different. But it forced McCarthy's hand. He couldn't put all of his best attacking players in because they weren't available, and we ended up with a winger out wide in Selena, albeit a very attacking winger, and then a midfielder in attacking midfield rather than a striker dropping deeper. So I think that works well, and we didn't have Sears playing on the wing, did we? No. I mean, that's another thing for me. I quite often when we did take a McGoldrick or a Waghorn or a Ghana out, Sears would invariably be out there on the wing.
It's a very
interesting
point.
He's not one thing or the other.
It's a very interesting point you make about the difference in, and this will link back to Paul Hurst, because Paul Hurst plays midfielders in a 4-2-3-1. I love what you just said about when a forward's doing that, they're coming back from their natural game, whereas when a midfielder is doing that, they're coming forward from their natural game. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I made my point, and yeah, I completely well, obviously I agree with what you just said because I just said it before. But
Yeah, no, quite.
um, but yeah, let's forget that performance because that was very much well, I suppose it's like the good dark side of Mick McCarthy and that he can do that, and we kept doing it to Derby. Like the ability to win games when you, I don't know, did we have more than one shot? I don't know if we did.
It was a Waghorn in swinging corner again.
Yeah,
Interestingly, after
yeah.
the conversation, I think we
The
had
the
a couple
ability to win games against superior opposition
by
when
one
you're under
goal
the
away from
cosh.
home. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean Mick McCarthy was the king of that, and fair play. But yeah, looking to the future, I'd love to see Emma Hughes in that formation, playing in that position. We just need to get him back fit, and maybe even Andre Dazelle.
Oh, yes, please.
I sometimes think about a midfield three of Skews, Dazelle, and Hughes. I wonder whether that would work, but that would be in a 4-3-2-1. I don't know if we'll be going back to that.
Let's discuss that. We'll discuss that at the end of this. But yeah, I
Okay.
see where you're going with that. But yeah, you do the math. Hughes starts, Ipswich win. And we go to the Forest game, 2nd of December. Hughes starts again, Ipswich win again. Forest are struggling to adjust to the Mark Warburton style, which obviously takes longer than the 4 months or whatever that they gave him as manager. Ipswich banging 4 goals in a great win. Chambers is missing. Spence covers him. Iorfa starts. The front sticks stay the same. So that good football in 3. Ward, Hughes and Selina off Waghorn. Connolly scores again. Dowell equalises with a free kick. Knudsen, fullback to fullback goal here. Knudsen assists for Iorfa. It's 2-2 at half time. Walker scores. Waghorn and Selina put Borough away with kind of good pressing second half. And at this point, I'm optimistic. Hughes is back in the team. Ipswich win even without Garner and Chambers. Waghorn leading the line, as you pointed out, makes a slightly different pass. You know, you're more likely to pass it into Hughes or Selina than just boot it up to Waghorn on his own. And Selina and Ward contributing well. What are your thoughts, Mikey?
Yeah, it was that. I mean, that was a rare, entertaining game, and yeah, Callum Connolly scored again. He at this point he's becoming a goal-scoring midfielder. Like, was the Derby game his first goal?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So he scored 2 in 2, but he was starting to break into the box, which is something that we needed, and maybe a criticism of having Connolly playing midfield with Skews is that we didn't like that. They're both quite negative. So I thought they'd be 2 centre midfielders that never score, and you don't really want more than one that never scores. And yeah, Hughes playing in there as well. But I've written here on my notes optimism question mark because I wasn't sure. I still wasn't sure. That was an entertaining game, but maybe a bit of a one-off. Would McCarthy have walked away from that game being as satisfied as he was after the Derby game? I don't know because yeah, I mean it was more free flowing and easier to watch, but I don't know whether he maybe felt that we were missing somebody up front to hold the ball up.
Scored 4 goals.
We did score 4 goals, yeah, which McCarthy would have hated. I mean, a 1-0 is that's perfect.
That's the optimum,
Yeah.
isn't it? Clean sheet,
Yeah.
clean sheet and 3 points. 9th of December, off we go to Middlesbrough in 7th place. 2 defeats in 8, 2 wins on the trot. 4-2-3-1 system settled. Hughes integrated into team. Selina starts every game. Chambers comes back. Garner is on the bench, coming back from injury. Off we go to Borough.
Did you think we were going to win this one?
No, but looking back at it, in the context of the season, with obviously 2020 hindsight, maybe not for this game, but the rest of the season, you know, this is a hard away game against an ex-Premier League team. But disaster of all disasters, just before half-time, Emir Hughes does his hip, and that's him done for the season. Now, am I going narrative crazy here, trying to hype everything up? Is that the moment there where the season ends?
Um, as much as I like Hughes, um, I feel like it may have been coincidental
Okay.
in some ways that he got injured and then we were never quite the same because we do seem to go on these little runs where it looks good and you might be looking at one player and thinking, oh, they're the reason why we're doing well. But then Hughes didn't stick around long enough for us to see the flaws in that lineup. But I mean, I'd like to think that that's the reason why that was the end of our like mini revival, because yeah, that would suggest that with Hughes in the team we are decent. But yeah, I'm not so sure, because I mean we didn't look like winning it or even getting a draw at Middlesbrough when Hughes was playing, did we?
I think it was
And that,
I think it was 0-0 before he did his.
oh, okay,
I
okay.
think possibly, I could be wrong about this, but I think he injured himself and they gave him till half time and we played the last couple of minutes with. I could be wrong about that. He might have injured himself after the goal. I wasn't at that game, so someone who was there will
Yeah.
smarten me up on that. But
Maybe I'm just being a bit wary of the fact that we're praising Emily Hughes so much, and like I'm a big fan, and I know that you are too. But yeah, is he definitely gonna be the same player again when he comes back? Is he gonna be another, dare I say it, Teddy Bishop, where it's just one injury after the next?
We'll discuss it when we get to the end of this thing. But
sorry, I keep jumping ahead. It's because I don't really talk about the games.
Take Hughes out of the equation. I think the bigger point of injuries and whatnot. I've got something planned to ask you at the end, so we'll go on to that. So yeah, Braithwaite and Bamford score. Ipswich dropped to 5 points off the playoffs. So we mentioned McGoldrick and Hughes passing in the night. Now Hughes and Garner are going to pass in the night because Garner's back, but Hughes is now gone. He comes on at half time. So it looks like McCarthy needs to find a solution, and the solution is fairly simple. He drops Waghorn into the number 10 spot and puts Garner up front. And in very similar process as the Forest game against sort of a possession team, Ipswich just pick Reading off, score from 2 set plays actually. I think a parried free kick and another Waghorn corner that Webster flicked on and Garner put in. But obviously now Garner's back, another key player needs to get injured, so Skews goes in for a hefty one at half time, and now he's going to miss some of the games over the Christmas period. So it just seems to, well, you can see where I'm going with this. Form wise though, this is actually very good because it's 3 wins in 4, and since the Preston game, Ipswich are scoring well, really. 22 played, 35 points, 2 points off the playoff, 3 wins in 4. Like I said, it's almost like he actually did do an all right job just to keep the plates spinning the whole time. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean that's the thing when McCarthy announced that he was leaving and the "be careful what you wish fors" were coming in, and the question would always be, "Oh, you're about where you should be," and that is because Mick McCarthy, results wise, he was doing quite a good job, but apart from 1 or 2 exceptions, the football was still dire during this run, largely anyway, in my opinion. I mean, you can correct me on that, but the Reading game is an exception actually, because we scored in the first half, but so many of them, and the Forest game before it, actually, looking back, I suppose that was 3 games in a row where we were scoring in the first half, but maybe it was.
I think the Sheffield Wednesday game, I think you pointed out the second half of the Sheffield Wednesday game, I think the football was good. But I do take your point that Reading and Forest both basically came and just played right into McCarthy's hands.
Yeah, they did, and I mean we deserved to win that game against Reading, and we were starting to look a bit more solid at the back as well. But yeah, like you say, we were just picking up so many injuries, and it was going to be hard to sustain this run. because it's not like we were absolutely firing. We were picking up wins, and then the team was becoming more and more patched up, and it became harder to pick up the wins. It wasn't like we were playing teams off the park and we had a style that you could bring players in and they could do the same thing. It wasn't going that way. And where were we by this stage? We were still close to the playoffs, weren't we?
Do I have the league position?
Put you on the spot there. I think we were about
22 played, 35 points, 2 off the playoffs. I think we were 8th. Yeah, either 7th or 8th. But the position's immaterial. We were 2 points off the playoffs. So you're essentially, you're a game away from being in a playoff spot.
But there's just too many games for me where you just know exactly what's going to happen.
What, Villa away and Borough away particularly?
Yeah, I mean they're the main 2 examples, and I'm not saying that under Hurst will be going to the Riverside and Villa Park and
we might go to Villa Park and win after the news this week, but
yeah, maybe, but I'm not saying that we'll go there and go all out for the wins. But after a few seasons, it became far too predictable what we were going to do. Set up for the draw, be 1-0 down, and then try and ride it out for a while, and then try and nick something at the end. And we always seem to bring on Sears on about 76 minutes, and then sometimes it'd be Selena that's coming on too late. And Sears was never the answer coming off the bench, and yet he still kept getting thrown on there. I'm not a big Freddie Sears fan, but he did show towards the end of the season that if he plays from the start and he plays in a more central role, he is more dangerous. But bringing him on to just chase things, and he hasn't got the best delivery, and that decision it just kept being made, and it became infuriating. Even though we were well placed and we were possibly overachieving in terms of league position and points, but still it was already shaping up to be a dull season.
So looking back at those 12 games, I take your point not to overplay the Hughes thing. What really strikes me is that he's trying to find a system that's going to work. And bear in mind, you've already taken Andre Dizelle out in the very first game. There just seems to be a big part of just completely making this up as McCarthy was going along, and just reacting to whatever was happening. For example, you and I were both kind of in agreement that when you got to that 4-2-3-1, the back four was fine. Whether we have wing backs or not, who knows? But the back four was fine. Connolly had played his way in there, and if Adeyemi wasn't injured, it would have been Adeyemi. And you started to have some good results without Garner in the team, with Waghorn up front and Hughes and Selena and Ward. And then you look at it and you think, okay, so there's no McGoldrick then, there's no Sears, there's no Garner, there's no Dizelle in the first 11. And then you think, okay, so how would they go in? And it makes you think that maybe the plan the whole way along was to play 4-4-2, but then you think, who was going to play? Was it going to be Ward and Selena? It strikes me that I can't for the life of me fathom what system that squad was designed to play.
Yeah, I feel like it was just off the cuff.
Some good players signed.
Yeah, bring in some good players, which we did, and we always seem to bring in a really good loan player. And we brought in, well, two and a half essentially, or was it more? So Connolly and Selena.
Connolly,
Iorfa. I'm not counting Iorfa. And then later on Carter Vickers. But yeah, I put the formations and all of the notes, and yeah, there was a bit of continuity with the 4-2-3-1. But then now and again, we'd set up to try and stop the opposition with our shape. We always set up to stop the opposition, of course, but yeah, just chopping and changing the shape and the personnel all of the time. There was no continuity, especially in midfield. And Ward was just, I think he sums it up. He was in and out of the team and playing so many different positions. How was he going to gain some consistency this
Well, he
season,
said
or
as
gain
much.
some continuity with the players alongside him, because I think that's important in midfield, especially to have continuity. And I know I hark back to the George Burley days, but we had Magilton, Matt Holland, and Jermaine Wright as our three centre midfielders, and they all knew their job. And you still see them joking on Twitter that Magilton used to say to Holland, let the runners run and let the players play. And that they knew their jobs, they knew each other's games, and Matt Holland was happy to run around tackling and playing it simple, whereas Magilton was trying to pull the strings. There's no partnerships in the Ipswich team anymore. Not really, not that I can see. Can you think of any partnerships or areas in the pitch where
Well,
two players?
Skews and Connolly became one in the central midfield.
Yeah.
There's not one up front. I guess Webster and Chambers is starting to
Maybe
become one.
I still think that's a slightly flawed centre back pairing. But yeah, it's the best option that we have. But I think I'd like to see a bigger physical presence alongside Webster than Chambers. Chambers is great at blocking and tackling, and he's a leader, and we definitely miss those qualities if he was out of the team. But Webster is more of an elegant centre back, and yeah, maybe needs somebody alongside him that will do all of the dirty work. Obviously, as a defender, you have to do all of that as well. But I feel like Chambers is. I see them as similar centre backs. They're both centre backs that would go well alongside a Christoph Berra.
Right.
I'm not the hugest fan of his, but maybe don't go so well together.
Okay, that's interesting. What will be very interesting is how Paul Hurst deals with this business, especially with Waghorn and Garner, because the truth is, if he is going to play 4-2-3-1, and we're not saying he's going to, but if we, base it on the way Shrewsbury played, then it's 4-2-3-1. Essentially, possibly Garner looks a bit under threat, really, doesn't he? Because if you do have Hughes and Dazelle available, I totally agree with your assessment that you're better off playing midfielders, especially people like Grant Ward, who's I'm a big fan of in away games. He's brilliant at stretching the game, down the right. And you look at it, okay, so McGoldrick has gone. Falami's kind of, stepped up a bit. Sears might be retained. You've got two forwards, and not very many teams anymore play two forwards. And I do just worry that often players' versatility, you saw it with Rooney for years and years, some of the best players who were versatile had their careers a little bit, just because you get moved around. You just worry about Waghorn ending up off the front or what have you. But what's your view?
Yeah, I mean it is interesting. I'm not sure that Garner and Waghorn will play together, because I think there needs neither of them running behind. And yeah, I would lean towards Waghorn playing because of what he brings to the team in terms of set pieces. But if Waghorn is to be our main focal point, we will need a lot more pace down the wings. Well, I say a lot more pace. Ward is relatively quick. I'm not sure whether he'd be whether I'd want him to be starting next season on right wing, but we've lost the pace in Selena. I think we're lacking a lot of pace now in our team, so that's something that Hurst is going to have to address. But yeah, I like Garner as well, but I feel like over the course of a season, he will, even if he's not first choice, he will still end up playing a lot. There'll be games where we need somebody up front who can battle the centre-backs and hold the ball up. I don't think we need to get too bogged down with worrying about who's the first choice, because as we've seen over the course of the season, as long as you're fit and you're not Kevin Brew, you're gonna get a chance, aren't you?
It'd be very, very, very.
Well, having said that, I thought Kevin Brew maybe had more chances than he deserved over course of his Ipswich career, but that's just me.
So that's part 2 of the season done. You think that one was depressing? Wait for the next one. I think it's gonna deteriorate even more. But thank you very much for listening. Mikey, where's your Twitter?
It's at Mikey_Smith13.
At Mikey_Smith13. Obviously, follow the podcast at Blue Monday ITFC. Follow me at Benjamin Bloom, and click subscribe and thumbs up and comment and stuff on YouTube. Let us know what you think of what we've said. Other opinions are available. Just make sure you're polite about it on the internet. Hey, we're gonna be back. I think you're doing the next one as well, Mikey. We'll see if Joe's about for that one as well. And David Diamond is going to be here for the grand finale, and as I said, the departure of Queen Cersei, which I'm sure is all fresh in the memory anyway. But yes, Mikey, do you want to do your normal sign off that never fails to make me laugh?
Oh, I was hoping you were going to sing us off, Ben.
Am I?
I enjoyed the Paul Hurst video.
Never doing that again. Do you know how much
abuse
I got for doing that?
The abuse that you were getting, I'm talking about from Ipswich fans, was largely from what I call the concourse ultras. They think that writing a funny little song and singing it is tragic, but filming each other, chucking beer on each other and ripping lights down is great. That's great banter, apparently.
I think I managed to get abuse from most of the 92 clubs. I think a lot of them were represented in the Twitter. So I will
let the haters motivate.
I'm just gonna collect the views. Do you know what I mean? That's my view. But yeah, okay. It is what it is. I just retweeted all of it. I just thought it was funny in the end. But I must admit, if you're gonna insult, you've got to do better than tin pot, because tin pot, ironically, is a word to describe something that's rubbish and shit, and is ironically a very rubbish and shit word in the process. So yeah, come at me. At me. That's all I'm saying. But anyway, I'm not singing this off, so you say it. Go on.
Okay, be careful what you wish for.
Bye, everybody.
Goodbye.